often, the average situation, you do not owe them the money and you're not required to have withholding. However, there's some real world things that are going on as well, which I guess we could talk about after the break. That is a break, right?
Welcome back to the Freedomlink Radio. This is the final segment. There's still a lot of information to get in, so I want to get right to Joe Banister here. And Joe, I guess within the last, 10 years or so, you came under attack and actually had to defend yourself from some pretty serious criminal charges, huh?
Yeah, I try to get this into a nutshell here, but basically after 1999, when I resigned, there was, I wasn't on ABC News with Peter Jennings or anything, but there was quite a bit of a buzz out in the internet and the non-mainstream media about my story. And there came a point when the IRS realized, this town ain't big enough for the both of us, so to speak, in the sense that we can't have these credible people walking around believing in this stuff. And so we have to make them discreditable or discredited. And so the way they like to do that, when possible, is a criminal prosecution. So what the IRS did is they accused me of conspiring with one of my clients, of asking for a refund, a false refund claim. And in a nutshell, the client wanted to file a return, amended tax returns, to seek a refund of income taxes that he had paid in the past. And that's actually exactly what the IRS tells the public that they're supposed to do. If they have a problem with the tax that they owe, pay it and then sue for a refund. Well, I know those procedures, and this client hired me to basically help him go through those procedures. And the IRS turned our efforts, our collective efforts, into a conspiracy. And in November of 2004, my client and I were indicted, and I was indicted on 4 felony counts of 3 false refund claims that I prepared, and 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. And I got out on bail within a few hours because, contrary to what the prosecutor said, he thought that I should stay in prison until the trial because I was a flight.
Of course.
And the judge kind of looked at him like, "You're crazy, dude. I mean, the report here shows that this guy's not going anywhere." And the judge was right. So I did get out on bail within a few hours, and then I spent the next 6 or 7 months preparing for the battle of my life. June of 2005 in Sacramento, California, I faced a trial on these very serious charges. Mm-hmm. And the weekend before the trial was to start, the prosecution's first dirty trick was to try to nuke one half of my defense team, basically to get one of the 2 lawyers ejected from my defense team. And, because of course the prosecution's looking out for my best interest, so they have to tell the court, well, Banister can't have Mr. Robert Bernhoft on his team. So that was a nice little thing to grapple with a couple days before trial. And the dirty tricks continued throughout the trial. But to make a very long story short, and of course, again, the websites will give you a lot of background information. But basically, the IRS, claimed that they had this case of this big conspiracy and all these false refund claims that I prepared. But when each and every one of their expert witnesses got up on the witness stand, this would have been the IRS special agent who investigated me, a 30-year IRS veteran auditor who was claimed to be the expert about these tax returns. And my attorneys would directly ask them, point blank, and they'd walk line through these tax returns and saying, is this line false? And the witness would answer no. Is this line false? Is this line false? And going through the entire tax return. And the government witness said, no, that's not false. No, that's not false, over and over again. And finally, the attorney would say, well, is there anything false about these forms? No, there isn't. And the jury's scratching their heads like, why are we here? And the special agent who investigated me, he was asked point blank, did you see any evidence of any conspiracy between Mr. Banister and Mr. Thompson? No, I did not. And the jury's scratching their head. Well, this guy's charged with conspiracy. You'd think the investigator would have found some evidence.
Right, exactly.
But that was the way the whole trial went. And thankfully, at least, the jury was not asleep. They were paying very close attention. And they acquitted me after about a 5-day trial. They acquitted me of all those charges. And no surprise to me at all, because I knew that I was following the IRS rule book. But I guess what was a surprise to me is how they would, throw stuff on the wall just to see what would stick. And their case was just completely ridiculous. I mean, there just wasn't any evidence of criminal activity on my part at all.
So since the trial, since your acquittal, what have you been doing?
Well, I continue to speak, like you've invited me to come on the show, and I accept the invitation gratefully. I basically just keep telling the same old story, and of course, as the years go on, there's more and more dirty tricks that the IRS pulls out of their little black bag, and it just makes them look worse and worse. But that's basically it. I just keep telling the same story, and then there's always new stories to tell. Because the IRS is always trying something. They've always got something up their sleeve. So
how do people go about learning more about this, and what can people do to fight this system?
Well, I mean, I've certainly got lots of free information on my websites, agentfortruth.com and freedomabovefortune.com. Truthattack.org is another great website. It's like a grouping of a whole bunch of groups trying to tell the truth about the federal income tax system. So that's probably another good place to go. Of course, supporting people like Ron Paul is a good thing.
For sure.
Ron Paul gets it as far as the income tax.
Do we need to end the Fed?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you really can't fix the income tax problem without having ended the Fed, hopefully first.
Yeah, for sure. Now, but I mean, go ahead, Gwen.
Any of our income tax that's paid, does any of it go anywhere besides to pay the interest on the national debt to the Federal Reserve Bank?
As far as my research has gone, and again, it's more just validating other people's research and analysis, but there was a famous report done during the Reagan administration called the Grace Commission is the commission that issued it. And basically that report said that a third of what is collected by the federal government is wasted. Another third is taken up with transfer payments, basically from one person's pocket to another, like Social Security or something like that. And then the last third is, wasted, interest on the debt, the so-called debt. So, as people will say, not a single penny goes to the kinds of services that people think they do, because if a third is wasted, a third goes to the debt, and a third just goes from one pocket to another. What about the lights and the gas and the airplanes and all that kind of stuff? Where does that come from?
Exactly. Now, based on my experience, what would you say is, because I'm not familiar with the IRS as far as an agency is concerned, but would you say for the most part that the IRS agents that are working there now, are they bad people, or are they good people that just don't know the oath that they took, they don't understand what it's all about, and are kind of kept in they're good, I guess you could say, good little foot soldiers. But would you say that they're really out to get the American people? Is that their intent?
Well, I think they do. There is a culture in the IRS of really kind of a, not quite a hatred of the public, but a real mistrust and like, oh, those people are all tax cheats kind of attitude, which is kind of sad. But I think the American public is not much different. The American public largely is, quite apathetic. They're more interested in, watching TV and going out for drinks. And
how many times have we said that, right?
And IRS agents, you can't expect them to be like, many cuts above the average American. They're basically average Americans making a living and not looking into things very closely, not checking to see if the person they voted for is actually doing what they expected, not checking to see if government agencies are actually spending their money wisely or if the officials running those agencies are actually corrupt. So basically that's the big problem is all of us need to be paying more attention to what our government's up to, including government servants.
And all of the information that you gleaned from your report, all that's all public knowledge, correct?
Exactly. It's available to anybody who's willing to look.
That's that's kind of stunning because how convoluted and just what difficult it is to try and discern the tax code. I mean, it's unbelievable. But Joe, we're out of time. The website's agentfortruth.com.
Yes, and freedomabovefortune.com.
freedomabovefortune.com. And Joe, it was great having you on the show tonight. And, an hour is never enough time, of course. But,
well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Gwen, for having me.
We would love to have you back. Guys, the next show's Thursday evening from 10 to 11 Eastern. Until then, on behalf of Gwen Caldwell, I'm Joe Joseph. Have a pleasant evening, everybody. Good night now.